Hello, my name is Ryan Beam, and I'm a student at the University of Kentucky studying economics and statistics. In this series, I explore how data is applied in real-world settings and how the field continues to evolve across industries and roles. Today, I'm joined by Juelan Brown, a partner engineer at YouTube and master's candidate in computer science at Harvard Extension School. Juelan, thank you so much for meeting with me.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And just to kind of get us started, kind of want to jump into a little bit about your career path. So I know your path went from royalty reconciliation and music operations to now engineering at YouTube. When you look back, what were the key moments or decisions that made that transition possible and one that you wanted to pursue?
So I will start as it's listed there, that was not an intentional path. It kind of came as it went kind of thing. But I think the larger connecting dot that allowed me to make those transitions was data. Uh, when I got into music royalties, I wanted to do something a little more mathy because I was like, at least I can do that. I wasn't too familiar with other means of working, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I always heard follow the money. So I was like, I figured I can hear something in the accounting department. And sure enough, one of the things I learned was formulas in Excel, and having to get better at that. And as I got good at that, there's also a bit of master's maintenance, metadata maintenance there that I had to deal with. And so I just really fell into like data analytics. Um, and as that got connected to my music operation experience, well, with that data wrangling, music data is notoriously noted for being super messy. And so it's a highly valued skill in the music industry in general to know that, have that background knowledge and have the skills to handle it. So at that point, I had worked at a couple of music publishing or more traditional music companies. And one of my former peers from my music business program, he was working on a startup that was at the time was investigating sourcing out how intellectual property was being used on different platforms. Part of a vein of that was like music in particular. So like think of before TikTok and how we kind of see how music runs and threads and there's themes through that and people kind of share it socially. Like that was kind of occurring before TikTok, and we were kind of like studying the phenomena of that, if you could say, more around the leans of helping to track the IP content, because of course this stuff was often being reused for free. We were also checking out like, people creating, I don't know, Batman stuff, their own thing of it. And yeah, analyzing that. Anyways, that startup was actually created by other persons who had formerly worked at YouTube. And they eventually sold this new technology that they use to Facebook. And particularly what they were most interested in was the music part. I mean, these were music people, so the understanding of the music part was quite developed. And so that fundamental technology is what actually started the official like music team on Facebook. Like they didn't have like a specific team for music, but the persons that moved over in this initiative of absorbing this company is like really what kicked off their kind of music discovery, kind of music identification system at Instagram. So, from there, I got to work with early, early days of like, we had genres and then Instagram feed. I don't know if you remember that kind of sorting, but like classifying that data and stuff like that. So, anyways, as I moved more into data, I moved from at that point from Excel sheets to like SQL. And this stuff was kind of cool because it kind of made sense to me. I don't know if it was music or whatever, but like the whole logic thing, like it felt good for me to do it. And I'm like, other people, I don't know, they thought it was complicated, but it made sense. And it kind of gave me a little bit of what I always like math to be. And when I say math, I'm not talking like PhD level because it does get a little loopy up there. But like, 2 + 2 always equals 4, no matter what language it's in, la, 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 la. And there's a lot of similarities to that, to software engineering in a way. So like I enjoyed that part of it. And so I want to learn more of it. So I thought maybe I could be a data engineer, as a means I could pivot, there at the time, since this is all also happening on the days leading up to COVID and COVID happening. There was just a lot of, maybe you noticed, online upskilling opportunities, especially given away for free, especially for persons like myself. I'm still, there's not a lot of Black women in the space. Still not a lot of women in the space in general. So there was just a lot of like opportunities to learn and do things like that. And so kind of thought, why not? I wanted to make this pivot. But, at that point, I already had my other schooling and definitely a fair enough of student loans. So anything I did next, I did not want it to be super expensive. And so for all these reasons, this was like the pivot. Going harder into engineering was like the thing I wanted to do versus, like, let's say, product management, because I did come from a business background. That could have been something I did, but I didn't. And so yeah, in my course to become more of a data engineer, I went through, I think you may have seen some on LinkedIn, the DS4A thing that told me a little bit more about data. And I took, I think, just another level of stats class, which I did have in music business, but my mind at this point is a little different than how I thought of that class at the original time. And once I was doing that, there was also like boot camp opportunities. The one I listed on my LinkedIn is actually the second time I went through, not that one, but a program. So I actually did another one, but I kept on doing this. And then once I got to that point, I was like, well, why am I holding myself to just a data engineer? Like, I'm getting a training to be an engineer. And with that, I can then make that choice then. And so I was just, okay, the goal is now just to be a full-time software engineer somehow. Granted, as you know, working at these top tech companies, I'm not new in my career making this kind of transition. And I'm in one of the most competitive spaces of it. So even though I had a plan of how I was going to learn that was more linear, that's just not how life is. And so I had done that and found what, again, affordable opportunities of upskilling were inside the program. Again, lots was going on with COVID and thereafter, and just changing of companies, how that happened. So, like, some of the opportunities that I had, like, ended halfway. But in general, what I'm trying to get at is like this just continued goal to continue to learn, be an engineer, and kind of like what you're doing now, and just going through that process of like learning and doing these different things. I met new people. I got more information about what's possible, et cetera, et cetera. And one thing I did discover is that as I'm doing this, even though I want to push into engineering, I still have a deep appreciation for music and just the culture of it. Like, I learned early before performance wasn't for me, but there is something about it that I really liked. And out of like a whole bunch of steps, I luckily fell into this intersection of music tech that I never would have thought about. And so I made the choice that I wanted to stay there. So as more engineering opportunities came up, I specifically wanted to only wait until I made one that was still in this intersection. And so I did that. And finally, I just this fall, actually, I most recently was able to make that pivot. But in a way, it's been a long journey of just upping my data or engineering skills. I don't know, for last 6 years, and kind of, you know, having a goal, but the goal kind of changed as it was going, as you get more information, as different things happen. So I know I said a whole bunch, but if I was going to say key moments, it's really just leaning into following the data and the money, I guess.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I think that's very inspirational. Kind of your non-linear path into data, and how you persevered through
Yeah.
some of those COVID challenges and having to pivot. Because I know that's not an easy transition to make. So that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'd love to just kind of get into a little bit more into your day to day. So I know
Mm-hmm.
one of the things you've said is you bridge the gap between ambiguous business solutions and technical solutions. So what does that actually look like day to day, at a company that's, as you said, very competitive and at the size of YouTube?
Yeah. I'm going to answer that, but I'm going to take one step back to answer that to just give a better context of like the field of working in spaces like this. And well, this first thing kind of applies to all companies. Like when you're front of industry of any company, whether it's tech or whatever, you're trying to weigh what are the most important issues, the most important things to prioritize and tackle, and you don't really have someone to look at. You're the one that's setting the tone, setting the pace, and you're trying to do it in front of other person. So when I think about autonomous, it's kind of you can't be at the forefront and not be some fashion of autonomous. Now, another level of that with how big tech companies often work is that, the ideal person, every individual person, no matter what your level is ideally some form of autonomous. The preference is that you can be a sound independent team member, that as you grow takes less and less oversight to make more and more impact. So I guess in my day to day, there will be like larger team goals, and it starts all the way up at alphabet, and then it kind of trickles down to the various PA like YouTube, or when I say PA, product areas like YouTube, and then various sub product areas and team spaces, which are usually dictated by the like leading person for those areas. And so from there, like once you kind of have like the general goal of what your area is trying to focus on, it's kind of almost up to every individual to source out. I want to say problems, like you're not picking them at random, but like identifying these big issues and the important impact, and making these smaller level prioritization decision making skills. And these goals aren't like given to you in black and white per se. You kind of got to tease them out yourself. And so when I say what that looks like day to day, every year you have this overarching goal, and then every quarter you kind of have like map out a plan to get you to that goal, and then you work in that quarter to get toward that and make the impact that you hope to see. So I guess that said, I guess when I specifically talk to bridging like technical solutions, that's more, I guess, role specific. Reason why I say like specifically shipping technologies is more to nod in my head as speaking that I have the skill. I'm the person actually building the technology, because work in an overall, I guess, solutions oriented, operation solutions oriented goal, but not everyone is a technical person.
Mhm.
So sometimes what you bring to that technical solution can be, I don't know, finding a partner that needs support for the technical solution or something, whatever.
Mhm.
But to specifically say shipped is just to show that like I've pushed code to production kind of thing. So, but overall, behind the ship part, just taking an ambiguous goal, and then for my team, because we're a technical solutions team, providing solutions to our partners, our clients, what have you, using technology. And usually we're building these custom solutions is what's going on, or making manual adjustments ourselves to technologies we already have.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you for that. Just kind
Mm-hmm.
of going off that and diving just even a little more deeper into
Yeah.
your skill set, especially in the autonomous workflow that you have to be following within a company like YouTube. So I
Mm-hmm.
know that you said you kind of re-engineer things to solve more root cause or scalability issues. So my question is, how do you decide when something needs a quick fix versus a deeper, redesign?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, like ideal scenario, everything, especially here at Google, is took deep design thought. Like you ideally want to always take the time to think this out well for any new project. Like if it's a clear state, we always like to have the mindset of is a potential to scale at some point. That said, how the world works, we're not always given a level playing field, and things happen. Conflicting priorities, deadlines, et cetera, et cetera. So like a lot of times when that happens is you may have a big goal or project is to do X. And another thing with software engineering, especially, we try not to reinvent the wheel. So we might have to then use technology B, but technology B may not necessarily perfectly fit into X, or and we had to make some adjustments, and maybe there's some unexpected challenges in doing that that we didn't foresee in the plan in the first place. And so, you do what you can to take time to make B better, put it in a better space. If there is extra time to completely rehaul it too, so it's like where it ought to be ultimately, that's great. But oftentimes, again, you don't, because the focus was, subject X, and you have a timeline. So we try to think of, leaving that space better than what it was before, even if it's just like improving the documentation so that the next person who has to use project or tooling at B can do a better job. But you're always weighing the pros and cons. At the beginning of the project, you really want to do design so that as they say, measure 3 times, bang it once, whatever. um, you're trying to do that so that you don't have to go back and do this or run into many uh, headaches and whatnot. And and this phenomena of like how I described in this metaphor with tooling B, is called tech debt. So just like when you charge anything, a little bit of it, you push it kind of past the buck, it's fine. But when you continuously do that and you do it and you have a lot of this debt, you like, no matter what the project is, you can't move fast, smoothly, and you got to face it at some point. So you really try to avoid that, but sometimes it does collect, and when it does collect big and it gets widespread, it usually takes like higher level coordination and like design thinking, or not just design thinking, but design like decision making, I should say, to get cross team persons to pause and fix this when it gets really bad, which occasionally happens. But the first action and intent is to not make it happen. So when you say quick fix, no one's ever trying to go out to just make a quick fix. It just kind of happens. So the idea is always deep level thinking so that we can prevent this in the first place.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I
Mm-hmm.
now kind of want to jump back a little bit to something you were talking about earlier when you were talking about that kind of continuous learning, especially you had to do within getting into that pivot. So I know you went through programs like Google Developer Academy, and now you're working through a CS Masters at Harvard Extension while working full time. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you approach, learning all these technical things and building without burning out and with constant responsibilities? How do you balance all that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question. Some people tell you it doesn't exist, the balancing and all that other stuff. And, I won't say I've never had burnout. I definitely have. I think depending on the personality type, the way burnout affects you is a little different. I think for me, I've naturally been anxious. So burnout, it's not that I do less, it's more that I am in a different type of mental state that over time I've gotten to notice. So I say that to say that, like, I've tripped up sometimes, and over time of doing this over and over again, it's kind of like training, kind of know your weak spots, or you start to notice, I start to know the cues of like, oh no, I must be leading myself to a state of burnout and I need to, correct before it gets down there. Um, and I think really, I don't know if I have a great answer for this, but it's really just like learning myself and the tendencies I do, or like understanding my limit of what I can handle, multiple things I can handle. Actually, recently, talking about doing so much, there's a lot going on in my personal space, and I took 2 courses last year, and I switched teams last fall, and that I basically dropped the ball on one thing, and it was fitness. Fitness is like a huge thing for me. And not that it hadn't been before, but it got to a point where it's just like, oh, I've been off my game for like 4 months and I didn't feel good. And it's counterintuitive fitness, right? Because I'm just always tired. I didn't want to go and spend more time to get more tired, and things like that. So it's understandable, but it's something that I really wanted to change. And so this semester, I was like, okay, I'm going to take a little less load, and I'm also going to put myself into an activity to kind of like outwardly visually see that this is an important goal just as much as like I have a goal for school. And so I did that. But I think like when we say juggling it, it's like noticing these changes about yourself when you're leading the burnout and noticing what like empowers you, because like it wasn't that I had just dropped it, but it was something that like makes me want to wake up in the morning, and you need those things as well. So like knowing yourself and giving yourself space to identify that about yourself and space to, I guess, be yourself and do what works for you is how I approach it without burnout. But that says every year, every day, my priorities, what I want, they change. So I guess really it's just listening to yourself. That is.
Yeah, I think that's a very honest perspective, and I really appreciate, you being open and sharing that. And I've taken a lot of comfort kind of hearing your story because I relate to kind of those different parts about being, a naturally nervous person and dealing with these different things, and it's hard when when things start to slip. But I think that it takes a lot to notice that, and so thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
So, just kind of moving off that, I know you've worked closely with music, data, creative teams, global
Mm-hmm.
platforms, all these
Mm-hmm.
different roles and teams. And how has been working in culturally driven environments shaped the way you think about metrics and success? And how has that evolved over time?
Yeah, yeah. Um, that's a good one. I think how it's working on these different teams and stuff, and especially creative, culturally different things. I think fundamentally, when we think about brass tacks metrics and stuff like that, um, moving over to a very just data focused way of even just speaking like tech, um, you have, especially when you're not instinctually working in a role that's like engineering or something like that. First, you have to learn how to quantify a lot of like quality like data and stuff like that, or just means of working. And so I think in the creative fields especially, you have to learn how to storytell through data. And so in a way it's you get pretty good at it because like you're in an environment that's kind of like disadvantaged in that way to kind of show your impact and show how it's important. So you kind of got to get creative or like think in different ways to like, okay, how, like, this is what I've done, but how can this be quantified, and you start to think of like, okay, what does this affect, and what is this, maybe a direct relationship that I can count, and things like that. I think was definitely beneficial. Similarly, having worked on various teams, when we talk about like how you measure success, I feel like one benefit of my like windy career already is that like, I work with a vast amount of different people with vast amount of different opinions. Um, and it helps me to see a lot of things, sorry, as not like a zero sum game,
Hmm.
especially when we talk about success. And usually when we talk about success, it's not even that something's unsuccessful. It's more about thinking about who is the listener, who is the audience person, who is the person who's going to be grading you on success, and understand what they mean by success. What are their goals? What helps them? Whatever, blah blah blah. And so I don't know, learning that helped me to think, I think, in more creative ways of what success is, communicate in different ways what success is, and understand, I guess, better when someone says success. What do they mean? Not necessarily what you innately feel is success, although that's an important thing. Live in an environment where you feel that too, but not live, but like work. Um, but yeah, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that's really insightful, defining success in that way. So yeah, I really appreciate that. And I think that gives me a lot to think on. So thank you for that. And
Yeah.
so now as we kind of get more toward a close and more toward you on a personal level,
Mhm.
so as someone who's worked across these different, different roles, if as we said time and time again, what kind of problems or ideas are most exciting to you right now?
Mm. Well, I mean, working still in music and creative space, I mean, you may have seen it or you could probably see it, but I'm very thankful to work here at YouTube and not just to keep a job, but like there is a lot going on in the creative industry or just really the content space in general. And the way we think about media leaders in our when we, just think about the industry at large are changing and shifting. There's just huge shifts, and what is happening now would dictate how the culture is likely to be for the next, few decades. So to me, it's akin to like the Napster era, if you remember that, how that basically killed the CD, like things like that. And yeah, like YouTube is like the biggest TV platform. I did not think of that when I joined this team 5 years ago. And I was nothing, like, and that's like crazy. So like to be, I guess, in the space while these decisions are being made, while this is happening to industry, and quite frankly, watch everybody here react to how everything is going. Because like they know how to do their job well, and like they're prepared to handle such changes when changes happen, but no one knows what that is going to be and how the thing is. And so it's kind of like seeing a lot of like cool sports players, at like a huge gay, and seeing how they react and what strategies they play for different things like in real time. And so I think that is a cool time to be, especially with AI, right? And it's not just AI, but it's an accelerant, but like no other.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I'm happy to be here
Yeah,
in this
that's
space.
yeah, that's really cool. And myself going through college, in this time, I know there's other things going along with AI right now, especially in the the music industry and everything. But AI is a big one for me. And being a sophomore in college, seeing how how that's going to affect things even when I enter the job market in 2 years. It's something that's interesting to balance. It's exciting, but it's also a little scary. And so
Yeah.
finding that balance and figuring out how to deal with that is something that I'm trying to face and figure out on my own. So. Yeah, so my last question is, so you've given me a lot of good advice and great insights and a lot of things that I'm really excited to reflect on and think about. But if just to summarize everything, if you're in my shoes, 19 years old, studying economics and statistics,
Mhm.
interested in exploring, the different and growing, evolving fields of data or AI or anything along with that, what advice would you give for building a durable career in the space that, as you said, is constantly evolving?
Yeah. Um, hmm. I think I don't know exactly what would give you the skill, but I would incentivize thinking about your career as a marathon, especially at 19. Like time is on your side. Um, and I say that to mean like, you know, everything is like stackable. It may not seem like so on like first glance in the first few years or what have you, but it really is. So think about like the long term thing. And when you say durable, like I'm assuming you're meaning in reference to like burnout and stuff like that. But to me, even a durable career is one where you take a break for a year, you come
Mhm.
back in.
Mhm.
But whatever keeps you going toward that goal in the bigger picture essence is what I would, I guess, advise you to focus on. And so I guess to your exploring or growing, like there are more money paths, etc. But I guess depends on where you want to live long term or go about your career as well, the environments. But like I would say in a city like New York, where there's a lot of intelligent, technically advanced persons, and other cities too, big populous cities and such. Um, I, usually, just money alone or just the clout alone is not enough to make you the most competitive in your industry because there is someone who loves it
Mhm.
and you can do it for a long term, day in and day out. because it excites them in some fashion. And I'm not saying it has to be your favorite thing, but something that drives you, and you will never outwork them if that thing makes you miserable.
Mm.
If it's a grind to get it, you know. So like, find something and grow in something that you could do like a marathon in a marathon like fashion, you know, and from there, um, you won't even really care that the stuff is like evolving. You'll have these stackable tools and you'll be willing to just put in that work day in and day out, you know, save that penny daily. And that compound interest really, it really makes a difference, you know. And so that's my I guess advice. I know you say you're studying economics and statistics, and you said this has a data analytics part to it, which is awesome. You know, get those skills, but like you didn't ask for this. I'm just going to share it though. I think in my experience, when I talk to younger persons starting out, they get hyper fixed on whether it was statistics or data science, and I get it to an extent. Like sometimes, like if you know best if you want to go to grad school and they're very specific about things, okay, fine. But beyond that, day to day, like it's the big picture really is not paying that close attention. So like, don't stress yourself out about. I guess I don't want to call people's interests small things, but they are small, and I just hate to see you spend so much energy on that when it's more about the big picture, and it's more about, again, just having that daily practice of getting up, going out, blah blah, growing towards something, than if it's exactly how someone else really told you to do it. So
Yeah, thank you so much. That was absolutely amazing advice, and I really appreciate that. And yeah, that is awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you
yeah,
again for, taking the time out of your day to meet with me, and I really enjoyed our conversation.
yeah. I enjoyed it too. This is great.